You're not stuck because life is treating you unfairly. You're stuck because you keep repeating the same pattern in new situations. And then you call that result surprising. New job, same disrespect. New relationship, same wound. New plan, same collapse. You keep changing the people, the place, the strategy, the timing, and after a while it all starts to smell the same again. Right? The world's not out to get you. You're caught in a loop. And the worst part is that the loop can feel so normal that you stop questioning it and start questioning yourself. You begin to think, maybe this is fate. Maybe this is just who I am. Maybe this is all life is. Well, it's not. And that's exactly what this series is about. My name's Ferdinand Mels, and I wrote a book to help people find their way back to themselves. Well, 13 books actually, in just over a year. And before your mind does something with that number, I want to tell you something honest about how it happened, because it changes the entire context of what you're about to watch. See, those books didn't come from a plan. There was no strategy, no publishing roadmap, no moment where I sat down and decided, this is a really good idea. They came through me, channeled. And I want to share with you what that actually means, because channeling has an actual cost that doesn't get talked about near enough. There's a real physical cost. Beyond the actual physical fatigue and exhaustion, the tinnitus, the constant ringing in my ears, it was always the signal that something was moving through me, a signal that never fully went away. There were nights where I couldn't sleep because of it, and days where the exhaustion was overwhelming. Stretches where my body was paying a price that some deeper part of me had already agreed to without actually consulting the rest of me. It never felt like I had a genuine choice in writing those books. And I know that sounds strange because we always have a choice, but there's a difference between a choice and a knowing. And I knew somewhere beneath any rational decision that I could have made that this was what I was here to do. That saying no would have meant saying no to something that had been building for 27 years. So I kept saying yes. And every sleepless night, every hour of ringing, every moment of exhaustion that had no end in sight, well, it was worth it. Because what came through wasn't mine to keep. It was built to transform. I've felt and watched it happen within me, a shift in perception, something dissolving in me that had been held for years, a frequency landing in my body before my mind even had time to argue with it. And that is what moves through when it's real. So, 27 years of work arriving in 1 year. And somewhere between the transmission and the silence that followed, I lost my own signal. And that didn't happen all at once. It was quiet. The same way a radio station just kind of fades when you've driven too far from the tower. You don't notice it right away. It's not like the music it's still playing, but something underneath has gone quiet and mixed. And then one day you just realize the man who wrote the map just got lost inside it. And that's exactly where the season begins. So now, before you decide what that means, because I can already feel what some of you are thinking, he burned out. He lost the plot. He's starting over. Yes and no, it's not that simple. I've been working on my own patterns for the last 25 years. Not reading about it or teaching it from a safe distance, but living in it, clearing it, sitting inside it, watching it move. And here's what 25 years of work taught me that almost never makes it into the cover of a self-help book. My patterns are not linear. They're fractal. All of nature is fractal. Every spiral in a nautilus shell, every branch on every tree, every galaxy arm, every healing process your body has ever run is fractal. Self-similar, spiraling. And patterns work exactly the same way. You recognize one, you do the work, you get lighter and clearer, you think, okay, yeah, that one's done. And then something happens and it feels like it's collapsed right back into the old feeling, back into the old fog, back into something that looks disturbingly like where you started. And your first thought is, I'm back where I began. Great. But you're not. You're never back where you began. You're at a higher layer of the same spiral. And that is similar and yet so different. You are more lucid now than you were the last time this came around. More coherent. Lighter in ways you won't fully notice until you look back from the next layer. See, the spiral doesn't repeat to punish you. It repeats to show you what's still asking to be seen at a level you couldn't access before, at a frequency you couldn't hold before. So yes, I lost my signal inside the volume of the transmission. But I'm not lost in the way I was 10 years ago or 5 years ago or even 1 year ago. I'm lost at a higher frequency. I can feel the difference even when I can't see it clearly. And that awareness or understanding where you actually are inside the spiral versus where it feels like you are, that is one of the things this entire series is going to walk through together. But before we get into what the series is, I want to tell you something about where all of this actually started. Because it didn't start with the books. Right? Originally, I was a photographer. I was trained, excellent, capable of delivering work that most people in the industry couldn't touch. And really, that didn't matter. It had nothing to do with a lack of skill. I was broadcasting the wrong signal. There was a tension underneath everything I did. And it was quiet enough to hide in public, but constant enough that it ran the show. A frequency of, I need this, that walked into every room before I did. My clients would feel it without knowing why. Jobs I was more than qualified for kept disappearing. And I kept changing the approach. Right? New pitch, new framing, new angle. And it all led to the same result. Because the problem was never the circumstances. It was never the circumstances. The book actually starts there with that exact story, that hum, that invisible fog, because it's where most people are living without even realizing it. Right? In a studio that looks fine from the outside, while something underneath is quietly running the show. And then I flatlined in a dentist chair. A routine appointment, no warning. One moment I was there, and then I simply wasn't anywhere. There was no lights, no tunnel, no sound, just total absence. And when I came back, the room was in absolute chaos. The hygienist had lost all color in her face. She was sweating. The dentist was shaking and angry. An ambulance was already on its way. And all the other patients had been sent home. And I had no idea how long that whole thing transpired. But I left that appointment carrying something I could feel and not identify. It was a crack in the lens I'd been looking through my entire life. And through that crack, slowly and patiently, something started to come in. It was like a direction, a different kind of knowing, a pull towards something older than anything I'd been chasing, right? Something I had no idea I was actually missing. And it brought me eventually to the one question that became the spine of everything that followed. How do we actually reach the code that is running the show? At the level where the pattern is actually living, where the subconscious is quietly running its program underneath every conscious intention you've ever had. Because the subconscious doesn't speak using language. It speaks through feelings, pattern, rhythm, signal. And then years after that crack first opened, sitting up in the dark one night, unable to sleep, a language arrived. Word by word, each syllable carrying a frequency before it had a meaning. It was a bridge between the heart and the mind, or the third eye and the heart. Between what you feel and what you know, between the signal your soul is carrying and the life your body's actually broadcasting. And that was Shaa'Vihra. It became a book before I really fully understood what it was, right? And from that, the Lucid Dreamer followed. Then 11 more, 13 books, one transmission, 27 years arriving all at once. And honestly, the one thing I can tell you, I'm no different than the average person who needs exactly what came through. I built a tool because I needed it. I wrote the map because I was someone who got lost. Not once, repeatedly, at different layers of the same spiral. And I'm sitting here now, not as the version of this who has arrived, but as someone who trusts the work enough to walk through it in public with you. And that's what this series is. Living Through the Lucid Dreamer is not a book review. It's not me standing here with everything figured out, teaching from some clean, comfortable space above the experience. It's 4 seasons of me walking through my own work, chapter by chapter, episode by episode, in real time with you alongside. So every episode of season 1 is one chapter of the Lucid Dreamer, lived out loud. I'm going to tell you what the chapter says. I'm going to tell you where I'm living it right now, not where I was, not a story from 5 years ago, where I'm standing inside it today. And I'm going to ask you to look honestly at where you're living it too. Because that is what this book was always designed to do. Interrupt a loop you didn't realize you were still running. The pattern that returns with a new face every few years, but carries the same tone underneath. Right? The version of stuck that looks like moving because the circumstances keep changing, but the signal hasn't shifted. This runs 4 seasons. So season 1 will be the Lucid Dreamer. It's where we wake up, where we learn to see the pattern, name it, interrupt it, and where we stop changing the wallpaper and start reading the signal underneath. And then season 2, the Quantum Weaver, is where we build, where waking becomes architecture and you stop being acted upon by the pattern and start weaving consciously inside of it. And season 3, the Infinite Witness. And that's where we learn to hold it, to witness what is happening without being consumed by it. And season 4, Through the Eyes of Love, is the return, the closing of the gap between the soul's frequency and the body's broadcast, between who you've been performing and who you actually are. And woven through all 4 seasons as living thread underneath everything is Shaa'Vihra, the language that was never meant to be studied, only remembered. Now, if you're someone who reads, the book exists. The Lucid Dreamer is the map this entire season walks through. Some people want to read ahead, some will want to read alongside, some will just watch. All of that is fine. This series works as a standalone journey. But if something in what I've described today made you want to go deeper before episode 1, the book is there. The link's in the description. It's the map if you want it in your hands. Because here's the thing, if you're still watching this, something in you recognized the premise before I finished explaining it. The repetition you can't quite shake, that version of yourself you keep almost becoming. The work you've already done, the breakthroughs you've already had, the circumstances you've already changed, and something underneath still running the same code. And that's not a failure. That is the spiral asking you to go deeper. And you're here because some part of you already knows that. So don't just watch the series, come through it. Come through it with the part of you that is tired of doing almost. The part that knows something needs to shift at a level that hasn't been reached yet. Each episode, I take one chapter, I share what it says, and where I am living it. And I ask you to sit with where you are living it too. Subscribe because you want to walk this. Not because the algorithm suggested it, not because the content looks good, but because something in this video spoke to something real inside you. And that part of you deserves to be walked home. So turn on notifications, come back for episode 1, because the map is real. I know because I wrote it. And I know because I still need to follow it. Season 1, The Lucid Dreamer. The signal is already moving. Let's begin.